On today's episode of That Is Effin' Weird, we will be covering another murder case. Now, this one's pretty heavy. All right, so if you were expecting any sort of humor or comedy, you're probably not going to find it in today's episode. Um, but with that being said, we have a special guest on the show. Before we introduce her, we'll introduce all the hosts first. I'm Alex,
I am Clark.
And I'm Seth.
and today's guest is Lily. Lily, thank you for coming onto the show.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Before we actually get into the actual case and everything, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what interested you in this specific case?
Thank you. So, my name is Lily, as you've said. I am French, and I'm very passionate about true crime. I think it's just fascinating to dive into those cases and try to understand what happened and why it happened. I was still in France when this case happened, and despite it being across the ocean, we did hear about it from there. I remember working in a restaurant and having podcasts and just news about it here and there. It was very fascinating, and to this day, I'm not sure of why this happened. So let's try to figure this out tonight.
That's a great point because that is, I think, at the end of like any documentary, any show, any podcast, I'm sure it'll happen here, is trying to understand the why this happened. Why did Chris Watts do what he actually did? It's really puzzling, and I do know that the investigators and I think one of the interrogators that originally interrogated Chris Watts went back and questioned him again, and he was still
Mhm.
pretty vague about his why this actually happened. But I'm sure we'll get into that. So Lily,
Yes.
go for it and just let's hear about it.
Awesome. So, the first point that I wrote down is how much this case was covered, whether it is on the news or online, by people just like us trying to figure out the ins and out of this case. And I'm sure you've heard everything about it. I think what is striking the most about this family, about this case, is how perfect their life seems to be from the outside. If you remove of course, the tragedy that happened, what we have left from Shannon, her girls, and her unborn son are videos and pictures of a loving family, people just enjoying their life in a beautiful house, in a wonderful neighborhood. And it's just very tragic what happened to them.
I will say this is
Mhm.
that I feel like now I feel like this is the majority. People don't post things online about the negative things going on in their life.
That's true.
They're only going to be posting things like the happy moments, and it's almost like if you look through like pictures of your families, like with the photos, like the old.
Hmm.
I was about to say old timey photos, but like the actual like the flimsy. I don't know what kind of paper it is, but it's all happy. It's all people smiling and everything. So I guess it is portrayed that they did have a loving, happy family. So I mean, I'm not saying it's one sided or anything. I'm not saying that they
Hmm.
didn't have troubles, but yeah, it's just I feel like that's what people mostly post. So that's portrayed very well with this family.
That's true. And I would double down on that. Um, where they were living, first of all, was a very adorable community, and Shannon herself was a very caring, loving person. She was born in 84. So, an adult, she had her goals, her dreams, and as she was growing up, she was very ambitious, and she started this business. It's an MLM, multi level marketing company called Lavelle. And this is what maybe not pushed her, but helped this portraying of her wonderful family, her wonderful life to the outside. How familiar are you with MLMs?
Um, Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like it's almost like Lulu or like
Mm-hmm.
Plexus, like where you get things and you sell it on like I don't know. Yeah,
No,
I'm
that's
like
it.
with
That's it.
Seth.
That's totally it. Multi-level marketing. Of course, it's a bit of a controversy because they're living in a gray area of the law, and not all of them are predatory, but not all of them are very lovey-dovey.
Mhm.
And one of their purpose to make their business and to gain money is to recruit people in their downline. In order to do that, you want to portray yourself in the best light. And like you were saying before, you're going to post the highlight of your life. So that's why we have so much content from Shannon and her family, is because she was posting so much, of course, singing how good the product was that she was selling from Lavelle, but also showing how happy she was because of it and all the money she had. She was trying to portray this life of luxury, and that's why we have so much content.
Question. Do you know if she still has her social media pages up?
I'm not entirely sure that it's up. I know Chris, her husband, was enrolled into it and he took down his pages, but I'm not sure if hers are still up and running.
Okay. It'd be interesting to see if they are. I mean, I don't have social media besides like the podcast that we have, but it'd be interesting to see if her stuff is still up there for like people to like see how her family life was. I don't know if that would be something where, because there was another documentary that I saw that like she was getting ridiculed online and everything, and I think her parents came out, or I think her dad came out and was just like, please leave us alone. So I think part of that would be like taking down her social media, but again, I don't know if it's up or not.
I know if someone dies and the family doesn't have the password, there's a channel you can go through on Facebook where you provide like a death certificate, like next to kin do, and then get it like either taken off or memorialized, which is weird to have like your last thing you tweeted. Like,
right.
That's so weird to me.
Yeah.
It really is. And now that you're mentioning that, I do remember seeing on Instagram, instead of having your name, you would have remembering your name. I wonder if that's something that they did with her social media profiles.
Maybe we need to look into that. If you the audience member, if you know if you have social media and are looking into this, please let us know. But continue, Lily.
So just another note about the company that she was working for. Part of their line of product is called Thrive, and they have cleaning products and also dietary supplements. Some of them could be considered uppers, and it's been known for a fact that Chris was using those patches that are mood regulator or dietary supplements.
I have a quick question. Thrive Market? Is that what this thing is?
I believe it's called Thrive by Lavelle, and it's LE-VEL.
Okay.
If you want to look it up, there's a whole Reddit rabbit hole about MLMs and all their predatory.
There's like a thing that's similar to that around here called Thrive Market, and I was just curious.
Yeah, same here in my area. Well, we're not too far away from each other, so Seth and I, like in the same market, kind of. Yeah, and that's something I see a lot with like a lot of people around here that are like promoting that. So I find that interesting. Like Thrive is, I don't know if it's like the exact same, you know.
Is it a Mary Kay thing?
It absolutely is.
You remember
it absolutely is.
My mom did Mary Kay
cars.
Yes.
Avon. Did anybody's parents do Avon?
Yep. Tupperware.
Yep. What was the wicker basket one? There was like a wicker basket one with Pottery Barn. Was it? I think it was called Pottery Barn, maybe. I don't know, but I feel like there was
Pottery Barn's a chain, so.
But I feel like there was like a wicker basket thing where like people were buying wicker baskets, like tiny ones. There was a whole collection, big ones. It was weird.
I just have this picture in my head of like house moms in the 80s with their wine spritzers in the afternoon, and they're instead of Tupperware, they're weaving baskets.
Oh. Goodness. But you probably do know someone that is involved in an MLM to some degree, whether it is lipsticks, makeup products, cooking wear, they do everything. I could also talk about that for hours on end.
We might need to do an episode on that.
I'm very opinionated about MLMs, so I wouldn't mind. Um,
Down. Write it down, Alex.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing right now, so I don't forget.
so one reason why MLMs are so prevalent nowadays is because they use social media to recruit people, as I've told you. And one of their tools or their technique is to explain their why. So it would be, why did I join this company, or why am I using this product? And they're pushing it really hard. Sometimes it's quite heavy. It can be because you're a single mom, or because you suffered a loss in your family, or illnesses as well. And Shannon was suffering from an illness. She had lupus, and she was telling on her Facebook, on her, I believe she had an Instagram as well, that the Thrive products and the company Lavelle gave her the community and the strength to go through her illness and to just be happy and as healthy as possible in her day-to-day life. So this company was very much involved in her life.
I feel whenever I feel like that's a slippery slope. Like I feel like that's like it may, I don't know. I just, if the product itself doesn't say like it does help in that area, like granted, like the patches itself, like might be making you feel better in like a sort of way, but I feel like that should like people should disclose that. It shouldn't be like this cures or this is like, like I don't know how she was marketing that with like the disease that she had, but I don't know. I feel like that's when you start saying like it can help with certain things that like are, rough like that. I don't know. I don't know about that.
It's tough to reconciliate. I agree with you. And this was pre-COVID, so they didn't have all the regulations. That's maybe a big word that the FTC has put in place to not have those claims be out and about.
Yep.
So it was very much a gray area back then. So like I said, she was suffering from lupus, which for those of you who don't know is an autoimmune disease. It can be very painful from what I've researched. Fatigue, pain in your joints, inflammation, and sometimes infertility. So it's a disease that is gonna just pretty much stop your life and have you constantly, if not constantly, in pain and just being miserable. It's in this context that she met Chris. They met through a friend, I believe, and he was the one pursuing her. Even if she sent the first message, he was the one really that wanted to get to know her, wanted to be in a relationship, and eventually they dated. After a few iffy dates where sometimes she had to cancel because she was too tired or maybe she was too sick, they finally got together and got married in 2012. Again, they portrayed their love life online, and it was just a beautiful relationship from what you can see from the highlights online, of course. And very soon after, they had two children, two beautiful girls, Bella and Celeste. And you can still find online the pictures of those little girls smiling and being full of life. And again, it's almost a disconnect from the life that they had, and you can still see from this horrific murder that happened. An entire family wiped completely clean of the surface of the earth. Truly eye-opening.
It is.
At the time of the event, Shannon was pregnant with a little boy that they planned on naming baby Nico. And I just want to emphasize how wonderful it is that she was able to have two children and another one on the way, with lupus being sometimes very difficult on women especially.
Well, I was gonna say that with what you had just said with like the disease that it happens like in like fertility is, it's really rough, and then she had two children already and then a third on the way. So that, I think that within itself was pretty astonishing. And I think that may be why it's just that much more, like, this case is that much, like, no, I'm not gonna say special, but it's just like that more, I don't know, it's intriguing maybe, but it's I guess sad too, where it's like the fact that she had this disease, she possibly couldn't have had kids, but then she was gonna have a third one, and then Chris takes them away. That's pretty shitty.
It really is. It really is. And reading through their testimonies, of course, it's after their death, so they might have been embellished a little bit. But from what I could read, Chris was a very loving father. He loved his daughters. And he was the same to Shannon. He was very caring. He was very loving. And from all the accounts, he was the one to stay up and be with her if she was in pain, or he would not move for hours on end while she was resting on his lap because she had a migraine or because she was just not feeling herself that day. It's very interesting to read about those accounts while at the same time knowing with insight what happened.
Well, I think some of her friends and some of the interviews and documentaries that I've seen about this was like, yeah, he was kind of quiet. Yeah, he, he was kind of reserved, but they could see that he really loved the kids and her, like just like as an outsider, like looking in, it never seemed like they had like outside the social media, it seemed like they were a happy family. So you have that like that aspect of it too. It's not just the social media, but it was the friends and family who saw them interact. It looked like they really were like a happy family. So, and that he was loving and he did really care. So,
it's very puzzling, and that's probably the first big why, trying to reconcile what happened at the end and the years of cultivating this beautiful family and being loving up until the very end. It's very hard to make sense of all of this. In 2018, at the time of the event, Chris Wass was 33. He was working as an oil field operator in Endarco Petroleum. Sorry, I butchered that.
it's all right.
And again, from everyone's account, he was very supportive of his wife's ambition. He was very present when it came to her business or her side hustle, if you want. And he was very much so helping her portray this life. Just perfect veneer. Everything is good. Now, what you must know now is with starting this side hustle, this MLM business, comes a lot of expense. Very expensive to maintain your status as an MLM rep. It's also very time consuming. You have to post a lot. You have to go to conventions. You have to host calls online, or you have to lead them. It's a lot. It can keep your hands busy, especially when you're a mom of two, expecting. So Chris was very much present and helping her, and I can totally see how this could build up. I can understand how maybe a year in or a few months in, okay, that's starting to be a bit much. Maybe I want some downtime away from the cameras, away from the pictures, just to be with my family, with my wife. I can see that.
Well, something I noticed too, again, was like it seemed like, and I don't know how everyone else feels about this, but like having a camera like shoved in your face, or like being like, someone's doing something for social media, and then it's like, oh, hey, smile, say hello to and you're just like, you're not feeling it. Like to me, it's happened to me a couple of times, and it's just like, please don't. Like, I don't want that. So almost like what you were saying, having her post every single day, and like, not saying that she was shoving the camera in his face, but I don't know. I get what you're saying too. Is like, I feel like that would get old after a while. Clark, Seth, what do you guys think?
Didn't she record their second child, like when she was expecting? She told him, she like recorded when he found out.
It was the third one.
That's what I saw.
It was the baby Nico. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a very intimate moment to share online.
Yeah. That strikes me as that, and it also I don't think I registered it as social media then. I think I thought of it as like a home movie, but this puts it into perspective a little. But yeah, the only thing I could say is that he looked really checked out, like his was like really forced.
And that's what it looked. Yeah, that's exactly it. Is like, I think he knew the camera, like his initial reaction, because she was wearing a shirt that said like, "Oops, we did it again," and yeah, pretty clever. And like his initial reaction, you could see like he really was like, oh, and then like he goes in, but I think he noticed the phone setup to like
Mm-hmm.
get his and then you could see kind of like the fake reaction, like just fake not fake smiles, but you could kind of maybe
Yeah.
tell that he was a little miffed about like, can you just shut off the camera, like like what you were saying, Lily, like this is an intimate moment, and like I don't know. I think things like that just need to be between you and your significant other, or like just take that. That's my big. People who take pictures of their food. That's another one. I like just eat your food, enjoy it. Like people can see the picture of like whatever it is, a salad or like whatever. They can just go online. I can't stand that. I just eat your food. Eat your food. Sorry.
I was at a
But
sushi restaurant one time, and there was this girl sitting across the table with her boyfriend, and she had like a giant Nikon camera with like a lens and everything, and she was like
of course.
taking all these photos and then taking photos of his. I was like, interesting. Very interesting.
I will
Mhm.
say this though, if you were doing it for the restaurant, like that I appreciate. Like if it's in a restaurant I've never been to and I want to see their menu and like what some of the food looks like, that helps. If you're okay, I get that piece, but like let the
all the Yelp reviewers just left our podcast.
Oh, great.
But they're there for that reason. Like if you're on a date, like if you're like trying to build an experience,
Mm-hmm.
live the
Yeah.
experience.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, the sun will still set. You don't have to get that perfect one. It will happen again, I promise. Like live the moment.
The thing is, you could use that as a marketing tool to get more people into your downline and make more money. So let's take a picture of this salad with tofu. I don't know, what do people eat these days?
Salad with tofu.
All of this sounds like a more
Hufu.
the what?
We got to bring it back to Hufu again.
Oh,
Human flavored tofu.
oh no.
That kind of way of making money sounds more exhausting. Like this multi-layered marketing stuff sounds more exhausting than manual labor, and I've done that.
Mhm.
And I don't know, like there's like having to be on and like engaged and like figuring out like this thing to promote online. I don't know.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
To maintain your revenue, you have to, keep the people you have in your downline, and you have to keep growing this pyramid that you're at the top of. It's a lot of work, and it's very exhausting. And again, it's very costly because you have to have the latest products. You have to go to the latest shows that they're organizing or the convention. It's a lot of money to invest into something that, yes, might have a high yield, but the amount that you pour into it is just ridiculous.
Well, that's like that. I don't mean we already said we're going to talk about these. We're going to do this in an episode, but that's LuLaRoe. Like you
Yes.
buy everything, so you're make like the money that you have, you're spending it on LuLaRoe, and it's just a vicious cycle where it's like, well, now I have to sell these 10 tubs of leggings, and then
ugly leggings.
Yeah. Oh, all right. We'll get back on topic. Chris Watts.
Yes. Let's talk about the day of. It's August 13th. It's a wonderful sunny day. And in the neighborhood, you don't think that anything has happened, but in fact, it has. It's been captured by a very critical camera that we'll come back to. Right the night before, on the 12th, Shannon is coming back from a convention, a gathering organized by Lavelle to talk about the newest products, to just cultivate this culture of community and just coming together. And there may be a little bit of a cultish practices, but we'll come back to that. She comes back very late at night. It's close to 2 p.m. She just wants to get home. And you can probably find it online if you search it on YouTube after this video, of course. You can see her last appearance on camera. It's their Ring doorbell. And you can see her coming back. It's pitch black. She's trailing behind her suitcase, and visibly she's tired. She's pregnant. She's pregnant. She's 15 weeks pregnant at this time, so she must be exhausted. She just wants to get home. She's dropped off by her good friend and fellow MLM rep, Nicole. Again, she will be a big part of this story. We will talk about her more in a few minutes. Let's see here. As she comes back home, of course, we don't really know what happens inside the house. We can only trust Chris's word for it, which I don't know that that's worth much, if anything. But supposedly, they have a bit of an emotional conversation, as he puts it, and eventually they go to bed. Everybody's asleep. It seems like a wonderful night in the neighborhood. And now we are on the morning of August 13th. That morning, Shannon had a OBGYN appointment that she misses. Her good friend Nicole was supposed to drive her there, and Shannon is not picking up the phone. She is not responding to texts. It's very unlike her since she spends most of her time on her phone or on her computer. She has to upload contents, so she will see her phone as soon as she's up. It's very off, very unusual for her not to be in touch with Nicole, or anyone for that matter. Chris will tell us later that he tried calling her a few times and sending a few texts without response. How much of that is true, I'll let you make the decision.
After talking about the fact that she is doing like this business online, and then connecting that like she didn't have her phone, that makes more sense as to why her friend is so worried and this is so unusual. I think now that we talk about it a little bit more, because when I've watched like some of the documentaries and again some of the interviews and everything, to me it was just like a nosy friend. It was like a friend who was just being too involved in their relationship about like what was going on. But now it makes a little bit more sense as to why like she was so concerned and so like where is she. So that piece, all right, now that we talk about, yeah, again, it makes a little bit more sense now.
She's very concerned. Again, you can see it on the cop cam. There's footage available online. She's very concerned. She's frantic. She has her phone in her hand, presumably calling someone, texting someone, just trying to make sense of the situation. And myself, having a very good friend that thankfully is not an MLM, if I was in Nicole's position, I would also be frantic and I would be calling, making sure that my friend is not falling somewhere, or maybe she hit her head in the bed or something like that. I would also be very much concerned being so close to her.
Yep.
Eventually, as she sees the house seems empty, she calls out to Shannon a few times. It seems that her shoes that she always wears are right next to the front door. There's a she's not responding to calls or to my phone calls. Now her shoes are inside. Yeah, something's not right here. She decides to call Chris, who is at work, and she tells him probably, look, but he stays at work just a little bit longer. She finally calls the police, and they show up at the house. They knock on a few doors. They look at the windows. Everything seems locked. Everything pretty much seems in order, except they don't answer. You can hear the girls playing. You can hear Shannon in the back cooking, or the house is unusually quiet and empty from an outside look. Looking again at the officer's camera, his body cam, it's very weird to have this peek into the home and it being so empty. Because again, with inside, we know what happened there. Or part of it, I guess. After knocking on a few neighbors' doors, asking them, have you seen your neighbors? Or do you know what's going on? No, nothing particular happened. The cop finally calls Chris and he tells them, look, something's not right. You need to be here. And despite being something like 5 minutes away, it takes him quite a while to show up to his house. It was probably difficult for him to drive all the way back to his house knowing what happened. It's hard to empathize with him, but I can imagine.
I think for him, he might have been going over in his brain because he knew the cops were there. Like, I'm sure he
Mhm.
was trying to like formulate a plan, not maybe like a plan, but like trying to get his story straight, trying to come up with like
Mhm.
things in his head and what he was gonna do while the cops were there. You can kind of see it. Like he tried to look worried from like what you were saying, like the body cam from the
Mhm.
cops' perspective. You can see he's trying to like come off as like worried and like oh no and like
Oh, that was so uncomfortable to watch.
oh
Yes.
you've seen it.
The body cam of him like explaining the video footage was so
Mhm.
rough. That was
He
rough.
literally runs up to the cop when he arrives. He gets out of his truck and he runs up to the cop. And I I think if my spouse was missing, I would be just a mess. I would be a mess. And there's still this there's not really urgency in the way he's moving. He goes up to the garage, he opens the door. He's left alone in that house for just under 2 minutes. What he did during that time, no one really knows. Um, I think personally that he did a quick tour, a quick look around to see if anything was out of place. He probably placed a couple of things around to set the scene a little bit, but there really is a lack of urgency in the way he responds to this very concerning situation. Your pregnant wife is not answering. That's very concerning. Finally, he opens the door, and again, from the police officer's perspective, you can see Nicole, her best friend, just completely concerned. No, that's not the word. She's outraged of how long it's taken him to come open the door, and for a good reason. Um, they get in, they tour the house, and pretty much everything is here from Shannon. Her keys, her phone, her purse, her shoes. Not her, though. The girls are not here, and she's not here. Finally, they go upstairs to the master bedroom, and Chris comes out with her ring, and he's just dangling it on his finger, on his index finger, I believe, and showing it to Nicole and the cop with this expression of, okay, now it's your part to finish the story. I believe Nicole is asking something like, is this her ring or is that hers? And he just says, uh-huh, still dangling the ring on his finger. They continue on in the house. The cop asks him a few questions. Did you get into an argument last night? What happened? And he dismisses that idea completely. They didn't really get into an argument, more like a emotional conversation. I'm puzzled. I'm still not sure what that is.
Was that Clark?
It's an argument.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was a passionate, emotional exchange. It wasn't an argument. I don't know what you're talking about.
Goodness. So he tells the cop, yeah, don't know what that's about. Now, some neighbors have cameras around, as you do these days. They end up in the next door neighbor, someone that's very close, and their camera is positioned just close enough to his house that they can catch the street and a little corner of his driveway. So they look through, the timestamp, and at around 5, I believe, you can see Chris's truck pulling in the driveway, the bed facing the garage door. There's some movement, there's some shuffle, and he's back on his way. That's okay. That happened. They don't see any cars around, anyone shifty just driving around or exiting the house. Finally, Chris exits the neighbor's house, and the cop and the neighbor are alone. And I believe his wife is here with him. Anyways, they have this small exchange that I think gives us a lot of information, because if you see Chris from an outsider perspective, you can think, well, he's a little bit awkward. I've been awkward before in stressful situations. I get it. I get it. The thing is, the neighbor gives us insights because he has the benefit of knowing him in regular, usual, normal situations. And he tells the cop, no, something's not right. He's shifting around, he's rocking back and forth, and he keeps talking, he keeps chatting. And I think the neighbor tells this in some shape or form a few times. He just cannot stop talking, and that's not like him. He's usually very subdued. He uses that word. So we can conclude here that something is definitely not right. His reaction, even from an outsider perspective, doesn't make sense. And now the neighbor that knows him sees that he's not acting right. He's not acting himself.
So, all right, okay. How do you think? We kind of talked about it a little bit. Like Lily, you said that you'd be pretty frantic and everything. Well, for Clark and Seth, how do you think you would react, or how long do you think it would take for you guys to react to something like this? So let's just say, like, your significant other disappears, right? When do you think it would start sinking in to the point where you're like starting to be frantic or really starting to worry? Would it be right away, or would it be something where it's like it takes a couple of days to like sink in and you're just trying to think rationally?
Oh, within the day. Like when someone's not, like, their pattern is all off and you can't get a hold of them, that's weird.
So it would really depend on the pattern, like what normal is.
Yeah.
And then what'd you say, Clark?
I was just saying, like, the concept of a couple of days is insane. So today, my wife, on Friday, she usually comes home early, and she wasn't home by 4 o'clock, and she didn't get home until almost 6. And I was kind of getting a little worried. So I was like, oh my, I need to start looking at this fucking traffic updates.
Yeah.
And see if there's
Yeah.
like, so, I mean, yeah. Yeah, that's just how I am. And I'm not, I get routinely called out as being a robot by my friends for being emotionless. But even I know that, if my wife is 2 hours late, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Now, if you throw in there that your wife is pregnant, would that change?
Oh my. Yeah, then I would start calling relatives also and start figuring out if there's actually something. I mean,
And you bring out a good point, a really good point. You would start calling people. You would be shouting, you would be running around, you would be calling people to see, have you heard anything from her? Have you seen anything? Do you know if she has an appointment? I don't know how. Chris is bent over his phone, typing away, and he's not really connecting with anyone. He's just typing, and blabbering about, he went to work and then they had this quote emotional conversation. He's not making sense. He's just not. He's in the middle of everything, in the middle of all the ways you could react, and it's just not clicking. It really isn't. Very soon after the event starts, the FBI and the CBI get involved because, again, there's a couple of kids involved and she's pregnant, so this is enough to get the big guns out for good reasons. Chris decides, against all odds, against probably advice of his closest friend and relatives, to conduct 2 interviews on TV. I'm pretty sure that all of us have seen those or a compilation of those, and it's so odd to see this man in his bubble trying to explain away what's going on and how he feels about it. That's very important that we know how he feels because this is a nightmare for him. The thing is, the first time I saw the interview, I couldn't really listen to him much. I didn't get much of what he said because I was looking at his face, and from the nose down, his mouth was moving, he was speaking, but the 2/3 of his face were not moving. His eyes, he was barely blinking. There's no emotion that's transmitted. He has his eyes transfixed to the interviewer, and he's just not moving. He's like a robot, like you said.
Yeah.
There's no emotion. He's not giving us anything.
What I don't understand is why would he talk to the news? Like
Mm-hmm.
that's something I don't understand. Like he knew he was guilty. Like he knew that he did it. Why, if he was trying to get away with this, I again, this I feel like this whole case is just a bunch of whys. Like why would you do this? Why
Mm-hmm.
why would you go on TV the day after it happens and then like because he was like, oh yeah, if someone has her or if she's gone, please bring her back. Like it will, like I don't know, I just feel like it was really dumb of him to do that if he was trying to, like, obviously he was trying to get away with it. i,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know but yeah, you're right, he's emotionless, he's stumbling through like the entire conversation, which okay, if you're shook up, if you're emotional, like yeah, you're gonna
Mm-hmm.
stumble and everything, but it was a different kind. It was like almost, you could tell he knew something. He knew something and he was nervous to talk. That's what like the stumbling was. It wasn't like a sadness stumbling or anything. So I don't know.
It's very true. And he was just shifting around and swinging back and forth. It was just very unsettling to see this guy on TV. And um, I've been into a bit of a rabbit hole looking at spouses or family members appearing on TV and trying to plead to whoever has their loved ones to let them go or to set them free. And it's usually very quick, very frantic, but very pointed. Their line of thought is just, my son is missing. He's the light of my life, and we need him back because I'm his mom, and that's how he calls me, and that's it. But when you listen to Chris and you try to parse the heck he's talking about, it's, well, if they are somewhere, I hope they're safe, but if they're not, I hope that the person that has them, I hope that they don't hurt them, and please set them free. And it's like, dude, hold on. What are you talking about? Are they Have they gone somewhere and did they just leave you, or did someone kidnap your family? Which narrative are we going for?
Yep.
Who is the they? What's going on here? It's just very hard to follow his train of thought.
Yeah. Yep.
It's
While
very much like a
mhm,
narcissistic personality disorder.
I could see that. I could see that. As an armchair psychologist myself, I could see that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Everything is about him.
As opposed to like someone like Susan Smith, who,
Hmm.
you know, you said like immediately, like, oh, please, bring my children back, all that stuff, even though
Hmm.
she knew she drowned them. Like
Well, that happens.
yeah, he's you know, in the mindset of like, I haven't done anything.
Hmm.
I'm here, whatever. Please hope there's nothing wrong with them, but
Hmm.
it's not my problem, kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yep.
That's kind of how he was throwing it out there. Was just like I'm still here. Here's me. Boo hoo on me. Um,
absolutely.
but yeah, but they're gone, and I don't know where they are. So
Hmm. There's a lot of me, and there's a lot of, I was like, I texted her a few times, and this house is not the same for me, and I was waiting for them, and I wanted to turn the light on, and I wanted to read them stories. It's just very me.
Yep.
It's very unsettling. A few times he sleeps up and uses past tense. I didn't catch that the first time, but re-listening to the interview, a few times he does use past tense, referring to his family.
Oh, that's interesting. I'm gonna have to go back and
Mhm.
watch that and try to keep my ears out for that one.
I think it's even more flagrant in the first interview, not the one with the dogs, but the first interview he conducts. That's the one where he's just using past tense. I think just a few times, but it's enough to raise an eyebrow.
Hmm.
Um, Now the second interview with the dogs, I think, is the one that's been dissected, I guess, the most, because almost at the same time as you can hear the canine unit barking in the background, he becomes a little livid. Honestly, I think he became a little pale at that time. He was probably not wanting them to sniff anything too incriminating.
Yep.
He will do all the incriminating himself, though. From now on, the case just really snowballs and happens really fast. 4 hours after those two interviews with local TV news, the police bring him in to be interviewed. Not as a suspect particularly, but his demeanor, looking back at the interview that you can find online again, he checks all the boxes for someone that's very much guilty. Very much so. He's hiding something.
Yep.
Let's see. I have to scroll a little bit. I talked too much.
No, you're good. You're good. The parts where, because I've seen the actual interrogation, and it's the same channel that had the Jodi Arias interrogation, and how they break it down, and like how they make the interrogator seem like he's their friend, and it's wild to see like interrogators like work a suspect into like they have so many different techniques. And even the lady that does the polygraph on the second day, she's also she's been through the training, so she's like, she describes it as like, oh yeah, I pretend to be like they're like a bubbly personality and their friend. I'm on their side, and then what I tell them right before the polygraph starts is, well, there's one person in this room that knows the truth, but in 5 minutes, both of us will know the truth. Yes. And it's just like, oh.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah. So it's really, really.
That is kind of cool.
Yeah, it's cool to see how interrogators work. And it's, again, just the amount of techniques that they have is pretty outstanding.
The thing is, even if you know what they're trying to do, what they're doing, or what they could do to you, you still fall for it.
Yes.
Because the stress of the situation, you just cannot control that.
Yep. And I think that's something important too, is I think that people try to beat like what you're saying, people know that they have these techniques and then they try to beat them, but that's like a technique within itself, is just let the person dig their own hole and then you'll get them to crack. So
yeah, I don't get it. Like, you can also not say anything. You can just stonewall them.
Yeah, you don't have to say a word.
They voluntarily give all this stuff away. It's crazy. Yep. I think the thing, I watched a lot of true crime over the years, a lot of the interesting cases like this, and interrogations. But something about Chris Watts is just deeply unnerving, and I think it's almost like what he did had to have, like, he had to have been like a broken person to start with. There's something not right with him, and then it's like your spouse being a like a sleeper cell. Like, you don't quite know them. They're like on the other side of the bed, and at any time something they could show their true side. I think that's why it's creepy. Not to mention like the depth of his crimes, but it's like someone you think so well can turn out to do that. That's just so gross. And there's like I've always felt like icky around the Chris Watts situation.
Well, I think what just elevates that is the children in the case. Yeah, it's like like, I'm not saying it's okay, but you do see a lot of like spouses killing one another like that. Okay, got it, because there's like crime of passion. Oh, you cheated on me, I'm so angry. Like that aspect of it, I'm not gonna say it's understandable, but you have that. But then like it's the children. There was no reason as to why you needed to do that. And then like again, it's like everyone asks, why not just get a divorce? If you didn't love her anymore, that you could have done that. So yeah.
Well, I mean, it like, and to my knowledge, unless there's something I don't know, it doesn't seem like she was like that. It seemed like she kind of worked a lot and
Mhm.
took care of the family, and it didn't seem like he had any incentives. Like, that's what's so weird.
Mhm.
Like you said, like,
Mhm.
yeah, when two people pop off at each other, like, we're kind of, I mean, everybody knows what like a flash pan of anger feels like, but that kind of thing is normal. It's the children that are go too far. The And also the way. Well, anyway, I won't. I want you to keep going. I have things to say in a
Mhm.
future
That's
part of
good.
this.
That's good. And you're absolutely right. From all accounts, Shannon was a pretty nice lady to be around. Sure, she wasn't doing the best side hustle, but hey, she was just trying to meet, to make things work and to make ends meet. Um, and honestly, things were kind of looking up. I think I read that she made around 75K a year, so that's honestly not too bad.
That's not.
And yeah, there were some debts, and yes, the mortgage was a little high, and yeah, they were struggling, but I don't think that inherently she was a bad person. I don't think
How
so.
did they get like a subprime mortgage right before the? When was this? Was this? No, you said they got married in 2012, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
correct.
Oh, okay, never mind.
But unfortunately, they did contact a real estate agent to try to downsize. So maybe the debt were just a little too much. And okay, I can try to rationalize that maybe her making a bit more money than he was at that time, maybe that was a little bit emasculating. Okay, I can see that. And maybe with the kids and him taking care of the girls while she was away at a convention having fun. Yeah, okay. Okay, I can understand that. But the kids, why?
Yep.
And he could have just walked away. He
Yeah.
could have just walked away.
Yep.
So if we go back to the police interview, hours after those televised interviews, terrible mistake again. Um, it's a pretty good show of how even just one cop can put you in a corner, and even if you know what's going on, you're just gonna look like a fool.
Yeah.
Something as easy as sitting between the interviewee and the door to make them feel that to get out, you have to go through them. That's that's sometimes enough to put some pressure and to just tire the interviewee or the suspect after a while. Um, Other things, little things like just asking a question and pausing and just letting the suspect trying to fill in the blanks. That's just the little things that, okay, that's pretty impressive, and I think I would fall for that if I was in his shoes.
Yeah, because
Um,
there's that awkwardness when someone's
mhm,
just looking at you and they're like expecting you to talk, and then it's like, well, this is really
mhm,
awkward. I'm gonna just say something, just to fill it, and then they just keep talking. It's
yeah. And he just kept on blabbering around at all the details. It's just, again, knowing what he did, he looks like like a criminal, an idiot, and a cruel person, and a terrible dad. Ah, goodness.
Yep.
I don't know how many times I watched this interview, just banging my head against the wall. Just what's going on? Eventually, the interrogator asked him, well, do you want to just pass a polygraph test? And this is where the lady comes into play. She's wonderful.
Yep.
She's so skilled. She kind of scares me, actually. She does. Because the way she brings in the polygraph and the text, she explains what's going on. And she does it with such ease and with a friendliness that's very scary to me. I would 100% agree to a polygraph and have her just serve me on a platter to a bunch of cops.
I don't
She just seems very sweet.
like even like I would I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do a
Yes.
polygraph test because even if I did or I didn't do it, the fact of like just being connected to wires and everything like that, I
Mhm.
would have the feeling that I'm gonna fail this. And it doesn't matter. And and I know they can't use the polygraph tests like as like evidence in court, but it's
Mhm.
that stepping stone to be like, okay, well you just failed. what happened. And if it's like I didn't really do anything, I would just be like, I didn't do anything. So I just wouldn't do it.
They make you? Do they make you take your shoes off still? Or well, like they used to make you take your shoes off at one point, right? With polygraphs, because the people were putting pins for the control groups.
Yeah, I've heard a pin under your a big toe, a pin under your butt as well. That must hurt. And just little tricks to try
jail.
to. Yeah, that's fair.
You know where you can pinpoint pain, like to a nerve point, then you can supposedly like throw off the polygraph test. So.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm not gonna try it. I'm not.
Yeah, right.
I'm really not.
You could even have it like in your elbow and actually put it in your flank, like your side, something like that. And there's numerous ways to do it, but it doesn't actually work. I mean, it does kind of work. It'll throw it off, but you shouldn't do it. Like you're going to actually still give the answers you're going to give. So,
well, I think like the lady was saying, like, if you score under like a -4 on the scale, like that's pretty like evident that you are lying. Chris Watts scored like a -18 or something like that.
Yeah, that was pretty bad.
Yeah, it was just like, yeah, okay, dude. Like, yeah, there's no. I don't even think a pin or 10 pins would have saved him.
Yeah, it's not just normal nerves and
Yeah.
things like that.
No,
It's not what it is.
Yeah,
Like, it's
he's
actual
gonna need a
brain.
bigger pin. That's for sure. That's for sure.
We're gonna need a bigger
Because your
pin.
brain waves actually immediately go to a memory when they ask you the question. Like you start actually, like you start thinking about certain things.
Interesting.
So yeah, you actually have to. If you are a true sociopath, that's the only way you can actually control waves between your actual like left and right cerebellums, and just not actually have a reaction to questions like that. So.
well, that's what makes them a sociopath. They don't care. Like they don't have feelings. So
at the end of the polygraph test, the lady, the operator, she tells him, yeah, that was bad. And he doesn't really fight it. Like he's not protesting, not really. And he just kind of goes with the flow. That's a general theme of the police interview is he's just almost, maybe he's given up at this point. Maybe he's just given up.
Because he even says, like, she's like, all right, you failed that. And he's just like, okay. Like, he's like, you don't, it's not like, well, okay, maybe was the connections wrong? Or like, oh, I like, he didn't, he's just like, yep, okay, I lied. Yep.
It's very matter of fact.
Yep.
From there, again, it gets even faster. They talk to him a little bit, try to get some sense into it. And at some point, he asks for his dad to come into the room. From what I understand, they were traveling to help with the search, and he was nearby, and he said, look, I got to talk to my family. I got to, get out of this. That, again, shows how much pressure just 2 cops in a room with you can put on you as a suspect. Adding to that, the guilt that you may or may not have. I get it. I would confess that I stole the chocolate. Honestly, yes, I did it. I was hungry. So his dad comes into the room, and it's very quiet. Nothing much happens. Finally, he says, just little snippets. She did it. I didn't know what to do. She did it. And that's when the cops come back, because now we need, the bigger guns, I guess. And he starts this story about how Shannon hurt the girls, and he lost it. He lost it. And he had to do it. Now, with what we know, of course that couldn't have happened, but that's his way of having an out, and that's his way of putting the blame on someone who, at the end of the day, I doubt Shannon had any responsibility whatsoever in what happened. It's so scummy and disgusting and cruel. It really is.
Yeah, that's like I think what it was like the woman who was doing the polygraph test. She's the one who kind
Mm-hmm.
of baited him, or like she was trying to like get him to say that he did it. So she was feeding him like, well,
Mm-hmm.
did this happen? Did this happen? And then she's like, well, did Shannon hurt the girls? And he's like, ah, yeah, she did it, so I had to hurt her, and that's why I killed her and everything. So it is like the fact that
Yeah.
almost like we were talking about earlier, he's a narcissist. He won't take the
Mm-hmm.
blame. He'll blame it on somebody else to like, maybe if it was like a self-defense, or maybe if I was like protecting the girls in a way, I can get out of this. But
Mm-hmm.
obviously that's not what happened or how it turned out.
And that's just another technique that the police officer used to just either place you on the scene or put you at the time of what happened, and from there it's pretty much over. You've already admitted to part of it, and if it just doesn't make sense, well, it just doesn't.
Yep.
Um, Now I forgot to mention something. If you remember before, I told you that Chris was on his phone a lot, presumably texting someone, while the cops were looking for his pregnant wife and his two little girls. Um, he was talking to a woman he met at work for a couple months, and her name is also Nicole, but it's not the same Nicole. He was talking to this lady, and he had an affair with, of course, and she sent him something like, "What's going on? I saw what happened on the news. If you did something to your family, you're gonna ruin your life and my life as well." And at this point, the cops are like, "Well, we know. We know.
Yep.
Duh." Him deleting messages and their conversation is just not enough. They have tools to get this information back. And now his story of, well, Shannon, she knew that I was having an affair and she didn't want to leave. She didn't want us to get divorced, so she just hurt the girl. That really doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I don't know about you guys, but I can't really reconcile those facts.
Yeah.
That would make more sense. Now, if you think of maybe Chris wanted to start a new life and that maybe he didn't see another solution that to cut loose a few baggages that he had, now I can see that happening.
I just, again, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't because
There'll
yes,
be no repercussions.
yeah, right. It doesn't make any sense.
It's a lot. And as much as I want to tell you that this case went to trial after he was arrested and there was discovery and we had testimony for, no, we didn't get any of that. No trial. Very soon after the fact, in November, actually, he was sentenced to multiple life sentences without the possibility of parole. That's not where the story ends, but it definitely puts a big old dot at the end of that part. Um, he just took a plea deal, and Shannon's family didn't want the death penalty to be on the table, which that's respectable. I can understand that. I don't know that I would have as much mercy, but I can respect that. And he took the plea deal. He told the story that he will change, of course, but that's pretty much where this part ends. Just like that.
Yep.
He went to prison for a few months before changing his story again, and that brings us, I believe it was early 2019. So yeah, that's pretty late after the fact. Um, Two police officers went back to see him to get to the bottom of it because at the end of the day, they didn't have much facts. Sure, they found the bodies. Yes, I didn't talk much about that because it's very heavy,
Mm-hmm.
but they just wanted to know what happened that night. because he didn't tell them much, and what he did tell them didn't make a lot of sense. They went to see him in where he was, and finally he told another version, which I think personally is pretty close to the truth. Let's go through it together. So on the 12th, she comes back from her convention, and at this point they have an argument, an emotional conversation. He tells her that, look, we're not compatible. It's not working. We have to just get, each other out of each other's way, and we just have to get separated. And she didn't like that. She cried and she screamed a lot, and I understand. I wouldn't want that. If I thought that I was in a loving relationship, I wouldn't want that either. But for him, that was too much. He felt stuck. That was too much. He was trying to get out of this, and she wouldn't let him. So he strangled her. He did. Just like that. From
Well,
what he told the officers, yes?
well, I was gonna say, wasn't it too that like he had said that she stated, "You're never gonna see the kids again," like during that whole
Mhm.
conversation, and like that's what drove him to do it too.
I can see that. Yes, I think I remember that.
Yeah.
And there was
It.
also apparently
Mhm.
Bella. I think Bella the younger, or I guess the oldest of the
Mhm.
children, witnessed it. Therefore,
Yes.
that's why he decided to kill the children also.
Mm-hmm.
There's part of that. I'm just looking through my notes. Yes, Bella is the oldest one, 4-year-old. Um, so she saw that her mom was laying on the bed, lifeless, motionless, and apparently Chris tells the officers that she asked them, "What's wrong with mommy?" He said something along the lines of, "She's not feeling well." He dragged her body through the house, down the stairs, I think in a bed sheet, just dragging her all the way down to his truck. And again, he says, Bella asks, "What's going on? What's wrong with mommy?" And again, he states, "She's just not feeling great right now." After loading up his wife's body like a piece of garbage in the back of his truck on bed, covering her with a bed sheet, he brings 2 little girls inside the truck on the back seat, and he tells the officers it must have been a 40 minutes drive, and he just drove. He could have stopped. He could have done a number of things that didn't result in what will happen to them, but he didn't. He just drove all the way to a site that he was familiar with, that he worked at, and he first buried Shannon in a shallow grave. Um, just there's no respect, there's no love in this act. There's a lot of passion into strangling someone because it takes a long time to take someone's life this way. It takes a long time. But just dropping her like that in the dirt in a very shallow grave is so detached to me. I don't think I have a better word for that. Very is detached. He gets back to his truck, and in his stupor, I guess, he just takes Celeste's blanket, the youngest one, and smothers her with it because he didn't want them to grow up without their mom. So he takes her life of this little girl, and from what he tells the police officers at this point, Bella, the big sister, says, "Is this gonna happen to me too?" She knew. She was only 4, but she knew. It really surprises me, if this is true, of course, it surprises me how aware of what's going on she was at that time. Of course, she's a smart little girl, so I can see it happening, but it's very heartbreaking.
Yeah, it's
After.
yeah,
Mhm.
it's I don't know. again, like
I feel so gross.
yeah,
It does.
yeah. Like that's the thing too. A 40-minute drive, like the amount of stuff
Mhm.
that he could have done. There's so many things he could have done. He could have stopped, got out of the truck, and just that's that. He
Mhm.
could have just left the kids at home and been on his like he. It's the kids. I think it's the kids that, and then too, like him disclosing like what his kids were saying and like doing and
Mhm.
everything. Like I don't know how he's okay with this. That's what I. So here's the thing: is like we were talking about earlier how he's a narcissist, but isn't this
Mhm.
on the lines of just being like a psychopath? Like he has no remorse. It feels like he has no remorse and no feelings for what he did. Like to me,
Mhm.
that's like, would it be more of like a sociopath than a psychopath, or just
The
like
lack of emotion and the detachment of it all, it feels like he completely wiped his family clean of the earth. It feels very personal to me.
mm-hmm,
It really does. That if he was going to have it his way and no other way, he needed to start over, and this would be with having them completely annihilated.
true,
I
true,
mean, we're talking about like what the worst part of what he did, but
Mm-hmm.
like the lighter part of this, which is also disgusting, is like him basically coming home 3 kids deep with this woman and being like, I don't know if it's gonna work out. Like that in and of itself bothers me. The whole thing, his whole deal.
Do you think it was like also like a money thing too, where it was like, okay, if I get divorced, I have to pay child support for 3 separate
Mm-hmm.
kids. I can't do that. Like almost like
I
what
can
we were,
see it.
they like just like having them completely gone, and if I can get away with this, like I will,
Well,
I'll be completely free.
Well, I
do
mean,
you
I don't
think
know
that
what he was making,
So
but I mean, we know what she was doing for her, like the whole uh, I don't know what you want to call it, the MLM.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know what she was bringing in, but you said she was bringing in like a decent amount of money.
Yeah. Pretty okay money, honestly. From the looks of it, she had a downline, sorry, that was pretty sizable. Um, Multiple times I've read that she was bringing in more money that she was being a um, oil operator. He was a technician, a worker. He was just doing his thing. And I think a part of that kind of emasculated him a little bit, maybe humiliating him. I think when you speak of his possible narcissism, I can see it.
yeah,
It checks a lot of boxes. I can
Yeah,
see that he was tired of all the cameras and debt, and he had this cutie at work that he started to date, and I think he wanted to take control again. Now it's very sad that that was how he took control back, but I think control is a very central point in this story.
yeah.
yeah, I definitely see it as narcissism, other than sociopathy or
Mhm.
psychopathy. So
He
I
didn't, I don't
mean,
know, he didn't
and
seem like unbelievably bright though. Like the way
Obviously not.
I there's like a whole bunch of things that have already hit those check marks, but
No,
also the way he disposed of his children's bodies in the
Mhm.
oil,
Yeah.
like w- like that those tanks are used regularly, and
Mhm.
also like you want to preserve something, put it in a vat of oil. Uh, so
Yeah, for lack of a better term, he squeezed those two girls, and I think something like 8 inches hole diameter, and just let them there. Just it's so hard to me to imagine that. I've seen the pictures, I've seen the aerial, shots of the area. It's a lot to take in
no.
that he just did that. And then of course he drove back home. Drove back home, went to work. And I believe between the time of him driving back home to being interrogated by the police and being arrested, he checked with the real estate agent once more to sell the house. So I think that control is a very central point here.
Yeah.
You know, this reminds me of like in nature, you see every now and then like a parent killing or eating its offspring,
Mm-hmm.
and I sometimes I wonder, like, because every now and then you'll hear about a mother doing this or a father doing this, and I wonder if there's like some weird latent gene that snaps when like those certain wires are crossed the right way, which makes it all that this whole topic even creepier, that
Mm-hmm.
if there's like a developmental pathway for this kind of stuff.
I think it's
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a little different because in nature it's about survival rather than like a need.
Yeah, but humans are very entwined, like socially. Like our survival a lot of times are like these really latticed works of social structures, and like what's to say there isn't some trigger there? I don't know. I've just wondered it because every now and then you'll hear about something like this and you're like, how it sounds like it's like from something from a different planet. It's so foreign, but it happens like kind of regularly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I see what you mean, yeah. I to be honest with you, I think that even if Chris didn't snap this way, I think he would have snapped anyway.
That's
I
true.
think so.
Yeah. If it wasn't
Yeah.
this, it was going to probably be something
Mhm.
else.
Yeah.
I surely believe that.
So
Thankfully, yeah.
I was just gonna say that I had heard that Shannon had brought up like the potential for divorce to
Mm-hmm.
Chris before it happened. So
I'm unsure if this was his retelling of the story or if it was someone else's.
okay.
I'm unsure of that. I I wouldn't really trust his retelling of this argument the night of, because of course he's going to try to paint her as the terrible wife that she was.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I can't really see that. I can't see that she was a horrible person. Nothing really that I see online is saying that she didn't really seem like a terrible human from what I'm seeing. Of course, she probably had her flaws. Everybody does, but nothing that would warrant this.
Yeah.
And even if she wanted to divorce, he could have just walked away.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was his out.
Mm,
Like if he really wanted that, that could have been his out.
exactly. There were a bajillion other options that he could have taken instead of the scorched earth method that he tried there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely doesn't warrant it, but I was just curious if
Mhm.
there had been anything in the past, like leading up to it, to where like there's anything leading to her possibly thinking about divorce, which I'd never seen anything
Uh-huh.
about. But just
I
my
didn't
like
see that,
periphery.
but something that would maybe connect to it is Shannon said on her social media posts that at the very beginning of their relationship she wasn't really the lovey-dovey one, and she, as she put it, she gave him a lot of outs. Since she was very sick, he got the worst of it. So maybe that could be part of it, but I'm not sure. I haven't seen anything closer to the event, closer to 2018, that would indicate that she wanted out of this relationship. Not with a baby on the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like I said, Chris was sentenced to 5 life sentences, 3 consecutive and 2 concurrent, without the possibility of parole. I think this is quite a lenient sentence. He's just gonna spend his life in prison, and yes, he will have to face his own action, but it could have been worse, especially in Colorado at this time. It could have been worse. The death penalty was, I think, removed in 2020, if I'm not mistaken. So he could have had worse.
So different from here. We brought back the electric chair.
You did. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, like we
Bring it
brought that back.
We actually had I think this was on a fishbowl. We had talked about this,
Mhm.
about the whole lethal injection aspect of it. But I don't know.
Yep.
To me, having him sit in prison is worse than I think the death penalty in a sense. I don't know.
Mhm.
It's weird how you look at it because like okay, you don't get to live your full life potentially because I mean again, prisoners don't know when it's going to happen. It's just an
Mhm.
undisclosed time, and then hey, guess what? This is the end date for you or whatever. And I don't know. It's you can look at it both ways where it's like okay, leaving the earth early can be worse than
Mhm.
sitting in a prison cell and then naturally just going, or sitting in a cell for the next 60 years could be technically worse than you know
That is true.
electric
I can see
chair
that.
or lethal injection.
Mhm. I can see that. I think he deserves the worst anyways.
Yeah, oh yeah,
It was
100%.
very
Yes.
mhm.
Yep.
I have so much respect for Shannon's family for removing the death penalty, for taking it off the table. Personally, I think he deserves the worst. He's a very cruel human being.
Hmm.
Very,
So
very
that's
cruel.
left up to the victims and not like the district attorney.
I think they
I
have.
think they have an input on
Yes.
that.
Yep.
Hmm.
Oh, this state does.
Well, the
The
family does.
family has an input.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Like that's everywhere. I didn't know that.
It's
No, I think.
Go ahead,
Go
Lily.
ahead.
We're talking over each
Oh,
other. So go ahead. Go ahead.
sorry.
No, you're good. You're good.
I think it's part of the agreement. They had a say in
Oh,
that.
oh, oh, oh.
Since I think perhaps their wish was for him to tell the truth, but they did refuse to have the death penalty be an option. It's very commendable and very graceful. I don't think I would have that much grace, but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know.
So outside of his weird retelling of her
Hmm.
possibly wanting a divorce or her hurting the kids or all his nonsense, he never really gave a clear motive.
Not really, no.
Mm.
No.
Like I don't even think he came out. Like he said that he had an affair, but he never
Hmm.
said like that was the reason why he did all of this. I feel like
Exactly.
his story is that like Shannon hurt the girls, or like he said like they weren't, or she had said that he's never gonna see the children again, and then he's just like, well, it's just I started strangling her. So like
Hmm.
he never gives the reason, like the true reason why, which I think the real reason is he just wanted to start over. He wanted to start over from scratch, not have any, like what Lily was saying, like any baggage or any loose ends. It was just he wanted a clean slate, and if he could get away
Hmm.
with it, then perfect. But again, he was an idiot. He wasn't smart about anything that he did.
I agree. I totally agree. Definitely, his intellect is not his strength.
No.
Um, and that lady he had an affair with, Nicole Kissinger, I think her name was. Um, I think she had an interview as well with the police, and she was very forward with information, which I appreciate. She completely disavowed anything that they had.
Hmm.
Um, I think she was aware that he was having an affair with her, but she, I, I'm not getting this from her that she pushed him or that she wanted him to do this to Shannon, the girls, and the unborn baby Nico. I think this is purely him, just like you said, getting an out of this relationship. And yeah, maybe sometime, maybe he did love the girls and maybe he did love Shannon, but I don't think that at that time on August 13, 2018, that was enough.
Yeah. Agreed.
But that's pretty much all I have on this case.
Wow, that was detailed.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, it was Lily. Seth, I know you said you had a couple of things. So
No, it was the thing. It really was just the way he disposed of the bodies. I thought it was
Hmm.
stupid.
um
Like he just kind of put them in a place where like moisture can't come in or escape. Like
Hmm.
in terms of DNA and all of that, it doesn't make any sense. But yeah, that's all I had to say. We didn't get that far.
yeah.
Hmm. I don't know if you've seen them, but there's been numerous adaptation and movies about this case. What do you think about that? What do you think about documentaries that are a little romanticized, maybe?
Yeah. There's a lot of that lately, and I
Mm-hmm.
don't really know. Like, you could just turn on Netflix, and that entire
Mm-hmm.
row that says like true crime thriller or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
it's all
Dahmer, the Night
yeah,
Yep.
it's
Stalker.
all
Yeah.
that. Watching the Dahmer one, that was weird because uh there was a lot of people on social media that kind of more than like romanticized it, like his side of the story, which was really
Mm-hmm.
strange.
Yeah.
Uh yeah, I don't know, it's a weird business.
I
It is really strange. It gives me the icks. I don't like it.
Yeah.
I don't I we've brought this up before too, like just like
Mm-hmm.
how like the entertainment industry is almost like, I'm not gonna say glorifying serial killers, but like making them very cinematic and very like, ooh, I don't, I think you can tell a story without making it that way, and it's
Mm-hmm.
just like we just sat here and we just talked about it, and like we like it's, you don't need all of that stuff, and I get it, it's the entertainment business, they're gonna do what sells and everything like that, and like, apparently right now just crime dramas and real life things are selling, so it's like, why not do it? But i I think it's important to understand or try to figure out the why, and like, it's, we shouldn't shield ourselves from this stuff,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know, I don't think you need to bring the entertainment business into these things. I don't know. I like the interrogation, the trials. I think that is very important to understand and try to get to the reason, like the reason why to things. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm not a fan of what Netflix is doing. Long and short of it, I don't think they should be doing that. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, Clark, what do you think?
I said to you guys, jokingly before we even did this episode, said, tragedy plus time equals comedy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you smile at stuff that's like absurd. It's absurdity is what it really is. Like,
Yeah.
because we can't fathom ourselves doing things like this.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you watch these videos. We have all the ability to actually see the videos of like this guy like trying to cover up for himself, and we know what he's already done,
Mm-hmm.
and we almost find it humorous because we just look at it and we're just like, look at this guy trying to cover up, you know, this heinous crime that he's done,
Yeah.
and like we didn't get into like some of the stuff of like, shoving bodies into, oil drums and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just really heinous, and it's disgusting, but at the same time, we look back at Jack the Ripper and things like that, and we're detached from it. We're like, oh, this is fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
watch the Sweeney
But
Todd.
this is 10 years. This is 10 years ago versus 110 years ago,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
and so where's the line? Where's the line drawn? So that's all I gotta say.
I think it's 20, right?
20 years and then things are funny.
Well, that's South Park's rule, so
Yeah.
kind of go by that.
That's where I'm at on it. Like, I'm fascinated by investigating these things, and
Mm.
so I don't know. Human psychology is just uh, we
Fascinating.
think
It
we
really is.
yeah we think we can box it in, but we can't.
Mm-hmm.
It is just as infinite as the universe. Like
Yep.
everybody's psychology is impossible to understand. I
Mm-hmm.
can't understand what Seth's mind is like. I can't understand what Alex at any time what's going on in somebody's brain. So
Right.
we look at stuff like this and you want to rationalize it and you want to like think that we can solve a crime. And yes, you can solve the crime and bring justice to a family, but you'll never actually realize what was going on in a person's brain.
Mm. I think that really highlights sort of a dichotomy that I pretty much face in any case that I see and that I try to not obsess about and try to find out all the little details about. And that would be, there's this part of me that wants to understand why it happened, how it happened. And that's just morbid curiosity at the end of the day.
Yeah.
The other part of it is almost, if I understand it deep enough, then it won't happen to me. There's this part of understanding all the in and outs of a police interview. It means that maybe I'll be able to trick the system, even if that's like we said, that's untrue. But I think that's really what I face when I learn about a case that's just way too intriguing to just gloss over. I'm really torn between just learning everything and this. I'm not sure if there's a part of ego in that, trying to learn everything so that it won't happen to me, so that I would be able to recognize the signs. But yeah.
Well, I think we've talked about this too. It's like there is that weird like fascination. Like look at like the gladiator times when like we would all sit in a coliseum and watch a man go against a tiger or a bear, and it was just like, or public executions, things like that. There's like a weird like thing in our brain, and like what if this is just like, this is our eras of like that piece where it's like we're getting our so-called fix or our, like that animal like thing out when we watch these documentaries and try to get to that understanding. And like that's the thing too, is just like the like obsessing about it can be just as dangerous, because like you can sit there and always ask why. And I think maybe it's the closure you want to like know, you want to know why, but really at the end of the day, the only person that's ever going to really know is Chris, and he may not even fully know why he did it. At the end of the day, he might have like, it just might have been something that like, oh shit, I just did that. I don't like, I wasn't thinking. I don't know why I did that. You know what I mean? But I don't think he's ever going to really come out and say it. So maybe he knows he's an idiot, and if he says I don't know, it's just going to make him look even worse. I don't know. And then I say I don't know, and then I look like a fucking idiot. But all right. Well, I mean, that pretty much, I think we covered everything. Does anyone have any final thoughts? Anything they want to squeeze in?
This whole show has been making me want to go watch Gone Girl, which is a great movie.
Oh, yes. Absolutely, yes.
Which one?
Gone Girl with Ben Affleck?
Oh, yeah. That's
David Fincher has true crime to a T.
Yep.
Yes. Oh.
And I actually like Deep Water also.
Deep Water.
Yeah, what one is
Deep
that?
Water is also, it's Ben Affleck and Anna de Armas.
Oh, okay.
That's actually really good as well. It's kind of a flip on its head of Gone Girl.
Okay.
So,
I need to see that. Wait, yeah, I don't recognize the name.
It's on Hulu, I believe. It's a Hulu exclusive. Yeah.
Yeah. Like Mindhunter, I'm waiting for the next season. Like talk about like a grim show, but it's just like I can't get enough of it, is Mindhunter.
It's still respectful though.
Yeah.
I still need to finish The Walking Dead. I'm not even done with that. I'm behind. I stopped at like season 8. I need to finish it.
Don't worry, I feel the same about Game of Thrones, so you're totally fine.
I haven't even started Game of Thrones. Like I don't even.
I stopped when Sean Bean died. I was out.
Isn't that season 1?
Yep, it is.
It's first episode.
The nerd in me is turning so bad.
No.
Hey, all of the Game of Thrones books are right there.
Oh
wow.
no.
They're just off camera. Yeah. All of the Song of Ice and Fire is there. But yeah, Walking Dead. I think Seth and I can give you a master class on why that won't work, so you don't need to get too involved.
I think we need to do another zombie episode.
But if we could somehow do like a I don't know, like a the cover of the episode could be like those old comics where it's like Spider-Man, the Hulk. It's like a crossover, but it's like zombies and prepping, and we somehow like merge them.
I think we could do something.
I'm about
Yeah,
Man,
that
I'm
sounds
about
fun,
2
actually.
hours away. I'm about 2 hours away, but I will drive to the place where they filmed all of The Walking Dead, and
Oh,
I will
nice.
live
Wow.
stream to you guys
Wouldn't work.
why
Wouldn't
it
work. Wouldn't work.
tell you why it won't work. Because Georgia in the summer is 110 degrees. Like it
Wow.
is terribly humid. Uh, Zombies would just be like rotting meat falling down. Like there'd just be steaks on the ground,
Yeah,
and there's
imagine the smell.
terrible reptiles, all the alligators, all the snakes, eastern diamondbacks that are 6 foot long. Like there's worse creatures out there than zombies.
Well, that's actually, I feel like that's what actually happened to the show. Like the zombies weren't like the main thing that everyone was worrying about anymore.
The people are way worse.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, raider situations seem like some sticky.
Yeah.
You don't want to get too involved with the raiders.
Not to mention about just the mosquitoes and like
Oh,
Westfall and
Ooh, wouldn't it be crazy if you could catch zombie viruses from the mosquitoes?
oh
yeah.
God.
And just heat stroke alone. Like Georgia wants to kill you. Trust me, I grew up there. The state of Georgia wants to kill you. It is hot, it is humid, the reptiles are huge. Um yeah, it's a bad place to be.
But people live there. People live there.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's where Benning is.
Yep.
That's why Fort Benning is in South Georgia, and the home of the infantry is there because they're making sure you're ready for this.
Oh.
All right. Any final thoughts before we tune out on the Chris Watts story?
No, I think that's it.
All right. All right. Well, hey, you as the audience member, thank you for tuning in for this episode. Lily, thank you again for helping us with this episode. It was very informative, and I think it was better than the last one that we did. So thank you. Thank you for stopping by.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a ton of fun.
Well, thank you. And you as the audience member, if you're enjoying this, just make sure you look at all our other episodes, our social media. We got plenty there. And just remember, we don't want stuff that's normal. We want stuff that's effing weird.